Welcome everybody. This is actually the first in a new series that we're calling A Day in the Life, where we are exploring what it's like to work as a engineer with Altimetrik. My name is Jacob Smith. I'm joined by several of my colleagues here today, Ryan Robinson and Abhi Vadakudi, wherever they are on your screen.
Hello.
Hello. And so my name is Jacob. For those that don't know me, I am the community director for Altimetrik Collider Detroit, which is Altimetrik is a digital transformation company, which we're going to get into in more detail what exactly that means. But effectively, we help companies stay ahead of the curve with the ever-changing landscape of technology, and source innovation from within their teams. I'm here representing, along with Ryan and Abhi, a project called Collider, which is the community-facing branch of Altimetrik. So effectively, what we're doing is we are building community amongst software professionals and other software engineers and other technical professionals, which looks like a number of different things. But one of the things that we do is host awesome virtual programs, which is how you find us, where you find us here today. So again, new program that we're kicking off. So please be patient with us as we work out some of the kinks. But effectively, this is called A Day in the Life. I'm joined today by an extremely special guest, Kruti Sheth. Is it Sheth, Kruti? I've never said that out loud.
Right.
So Kruti Sheth, who is a full stack Java engineer on the Altimetrik team. Currently working full-time at Ford Motor Company. And so without further ado, the goal today is to really dive into in a bit of detail what Kruti's experience is like working at Altimetrik on one of our client sites, Ford, what she does all day, what that experience is like, what she enjoys, what she would like to, what could be better. And all that good stuff to hopefully inform everybody tuning in, to help inform you on what this experience is like, and potentially determine if this is something that might be in the cards for you in the future. So first and foremost, Kruti, I guess if you could just introduce yourself and let us know kind of what is your role with Altimetrik and where are you coming at this conversation from today?
Sure. Thank you for the great introduction. So I'm working with Altimetrik for the past 2 years. Previously, I used to be with Bank of America. I did my master's here, and then, like I said, for the past 2 years, I've been with Altimetrik. I've worked with two clients. I mean, the same client, but two teams. Earlier, I used to be with electric vehicles, and then recently, for the past 1 year, I've been working with Ford Commercial Solutions. So my role here is completely, like you mentioned, like as a full stack developer. We have a lot of clients like Avis Enterprise, so we are more like a B2B org. We also are working with a lot of fleet companies and the people who are managing the fleet business. So it's pretty interesting. The one important and the nice thing about Ford is, which I was not exposed to earlier, we try to do a lot of pair programming here. Which they technically call it as extreme programming. So that's when we try to pair with every engineer on the team on a weekly basis. So that's where I think my personal benefit was with Altimetrik and Ford, because I'm trying to follow a team model. I come from a background where I have like 5 years of experience previously, and then I'm working with people in my team who have like 25 years of experience. So with that being said, some places or some areas where I don't have experience in terms of databases or cloud, when I work with them, I'm getting exposed to those ends. So that is one great thing about this role. And the other thing is, like, we try to follow a lot of TDD with Ford. That's the main principle, test driven development, just to see that there are less defects. And whenever we are shipping any products into a production, we just want to make sure that we don't have to go through a different level of QA. So this is currently my role. We can definitely go in depth, but that's just a brief overview.
That's an awesome overview, and you touched on a number of things: TDD, extreme programming, some electric vehicles versus commercial solutions. So we can definitely break this all down. So I guess just to help folks kind of understand, so in terms of the relationship between Altimetrik and Ford, when you joined the Altimetrik team, What did that experience look like? How did you end up working at Ford once you joined the Altimetrik team?
In terms of onboarding and training.
Yeah. Did you already know you were going to be in the Detroit area, or did that come secondary? Like, kind of what initially? Could you just tell us kind of what it looked like from when you started considering working for Altimetrik and then found yourself hired at Ford? So I guess that you could speak to the onboarding
Sure.
as well.
Yeah. I know for me, I can talk to my experience. I came for my playground after my initial interviews, and then I was being told that I would be there for the Midwest client, which is Ford, which I was excited towards because I had experience in banking, and then this was a completely separate domain, which is automobile. So I knew my client was supposed to be Ford because I cleared playground. Then I had to go through again another on-site interview. So I flew back to Detroit for the EV team interview. That went well. It was a pair programming session with the engineer from Ford Labs, and that was it. But I know recently there are people, because I think when Altimetrik finds the right resource, they make sure that they onboard them, and there is some time in the middle where they can go through a lot of training process. Automatic provides them with good team matching experience in terms of resources, mentors. They also give them resources in terms of Udemy and all that, so that they can go through different tutorials. In my case, I did not go through that step, but I know Automatic is doing that a lot recently, so which is pretty cool. I wish I had a chance to go through that, but I know my colleagues like Hisham and Vinay, they did go through that particular step. So that was my experience.
Yeah, and then taking a quick step back. So for those that aren't familiar, just to clarify the term there, when Kruti talks about clearing playground, Altimetrik as a company, we have a multi-step interview process. Every company handles this differently. The way that we do this is it's effectively, there's 3 different stages in the process. Kruti, correct me if I'm wrong. There's like an initial screening that involves like an online test. Then there's like a call where you actually go through a more in-depth test with a technical member of our team. And then there's what's called a playground, which is like you spend most of the day, you're given a problem statement at the beginning of the day, and you actually are demonstrating throughout the course of the day how you would go about solving that challenge. Did I describe that pretty well, Kruti?
Perfectly, yeah. Just to give
Okay.
more light there, I think we try to build an end-to-end application. It's good if you have a UI, but basically, like, think about airline reservation system or any booking system. So, trying to build a microservice or an API using Java, Spring Boot, any technology, I think Autometric is completely platform independent when it comes to that. And then they let you showcase at the end of 8-hour session what you've built. So it's pretty interesting. It's very collaborative, and you can share your insights. So yeah, that's exactly how you mentioned. That's, I think, the second last step, and the last one is the actual interview with Ford.
Right. And then you'd interview on a specific client.
Yeah.
And so I just posted this in the chat, but just a reminder to everyone, really intending this to be, we want to be providing information that's helpful for everyone. So I have pre-prepared questions that I think can help to do that, but please feel free to drop questions in the chat as we go so that we can make sure that we're answering your questions. So Kruti, so that's very helpful in terms of understanding kind of the interview process in a bit more detail. You kind of alluded to that onboarding piece where, I think I imagine other companies do this as well. I know with Altimetrik, like we have training resources available so that when you get started, our team is basically working with you to shore up any gaps in your skill set and providing you with training modules to help you level up in whatever areas you might be missing skills or whatever the case may be. And we have a partnership with Udemy, which Kruti referenced, which is an online learning platform where you can take tutorials on coding and different things. So that's really cool. And then I guess, Kruti, to play off of that piece of it, could you kind of speak to like ongoing skill development as it relates to your job? How were you completely ready out the gate to run with what you were doing? You mentioned partnering with people that have more experience in things. Kind of what did that look like for someone who's maybe worried that they don't have all the necessary skills or something like that? What does that piece of the process look like?
Sure. I think for both of my teams, like, for example, the first team I was working for was EV. I had experience in terms of technologies with JavaScript, jQuery, Angular. That team was following more of React.js, TDD, and sort of environment, which I did not have an expertise in. It's completely fine what I did before I started because I had a 1 week off. You can just go online, create a POC. There are so many resources online. Like I said, Altimetrik does provide you with tutorials too. But if you want, you can start up your own application, spin up something just for your startup. But I would never, I was never like, I would say there was no blockers in the terms because we always had some team members whom we can actually shadow all the time. For I know for the matter of fact in EV we had some people from Ford Labs who helped us explain and do all the startup and the onboarding process in terms of the project. Similarly, when I moved to this team as well, I didn't have experience in terms of Azure cloud and all that. So I think as soon as you work around, you get your hands on it. With every week when you work with different team members, you learn more around it. uh, and I think my team has been wonderful in terms of, if you don't know anything, they always try to motivate you. They share your learnings. And every Friday, at least in Ford, we have something called as power up time. So that is when I do my personal retrospect. So there are certain things which I know that I lagged on, or I had to follow my team member and that person was leading a lot. So I try to do a power up on that and see how I can improve more. So next time whenever there is a similar task, I can pick it up on my own. So it's never a showstopper. It's a great team, and you can always learn through it. Technically there's never an issue as an engineer. And I think Altimetrik has been very helpful in terms of any resources that you need, in terms of providing any support, even externally or internally for that matter.
Very cool. And then Abhi had a great question, which is kind of a follow on to that, which is just, was there any technology or framework or any other experience that you kind of wished that you would have had before joining the team, or that would have like helped you hit the ground running?
Sure.
If you were giving advice to someone else who's maybe interviewing at Altimetrik?
I would say Spring Boot and PCF. It's extensively used in Ford everywhere that I've seen. Pair programming is something that you can learn, but having a good experience in Spring Boot, Java 11, and PCF, which is nothing but a platform as a service, is completely acceptable, and it's good to have it before you join.
And then I guess if you could elaborate on that. So you mentioned, could you speak to, so you threw out a lot of different terms, the pair programming, test-driven development. Could you speak to kind of the suite of maybe languages and frameworks that you're regularly interacting with on a day-to-day basis?
Sure.
Just for kind of to paint kind of the picture
definitely.
of what types of languages you work with?
Sure. So let's move piece by piece. So in terms of backend, the tech stack or the ecosystem that my team relies on, we have the backend language written in Java 11, which is very powerful. It gives us so basically with Java 7, whatever you write in 15 lines, you can just do that with Lambda and all that in like 3 lines. So that's the whole reason why we are trying to use Java 11. The other thing that we try to use in terms of frameworks is we try to use Spring Boot, which takes care of all the boilerplate code. You can do everything that Spring Boot does, but then you have to spend like days and days and hours of efforts just to build that basic framework. So it's easier in terms of interaction with databases, with cloud and all that. That's why we're using Spring Boot. So that is our backend side. For the front end, we are using two tech stacks. I would say we are using Vue.js, which is completely new, and then we are also using Bootstrap.js, and some parts of it we're also using React.js. So there's like different flavors in terms of front end, whichever works best in terms of integration with libraries and all that. Because if you think about UI, it's about how it makes your job much more easier. For example, if you have to integrate a small a calendar, like a date picker, you don't want to build that on your own, right? You want a library who provides you that. So it's just about choosing the right technology or right library. So that's what it is. In terms of TDD, I think I missed that on the back end. So TDD, we try to use more of JUnit, JUnit 5 for our test-driven development, where we try to cover unit testing, integration testing. When I say unit testing, it's basically testing your application logic, how your logic works. And when it comes to integration testing, it's when all the applications work together. You want to make sure that they're working correctly in the integrated manner. So that's more like a system level testing. That is on the back end. For the front end, we try to use Selenium. We also try to use Jasmine. We try to use Jest, Enzymes. These are different tech stacks that we use for our front end. I know it's a lot, but yeah, these are the things that we try to use because we have like three technologies. Now, the interesting part that I was not familiar to in this particular team is cloud. That is so amazing and interesting. When I joined this team, I didn't have any experience in cloud, so we are using PCF. I kept mentioning PCF, but PCF is more like Pivotal Cloud Foundry, which is nothing but a platform as a service that you can use to deploy, deliver, and scale your applications. So that's why we're using PCF. So every application that we build, or microservice, or a front-end application, entire thing relies on a cloud. It sits on the cloud, and that is what is provided to our customers. So that is PCF. It's nothing but a container. You can think about it as a Kubernetes, like Google provides, like a cloud engine that is readily available. It is off-prem, so we don't have to worry about scaling and all those things. Um Other thing I think that I can mention about is Azure. Uh, so we are using Azure in terms of databases. So all our SQL databases relies on Azure. They're hosted on Azure DB. And then we also have lots of things with related to keywords, like basically uh, any secrets, any credentials, and those kind of things we need to make sure they're encrypted and they're safe. So that's why we're using Azure Key Vault. There's a lot of things that we trying to do recently. I was working on a POC for my applications to make sure that they are highly available in terms of business continuity and disaster recovery. So make sure, if, for example, if the e-servers crash, you want to make sure that the applications are still running and serving the traffic. So in terms of that, we try to do some sort of geo replication from east to west, and doing some sort of load balancing on the cloud with the help of Azure. So it's a broad overview how my team is. So we
Yeah,
have front end, we have back end, we have cloud, we have DB, and so it's a huge ecosystem. It's evolving every day.
amazing. And it sounds like you had some experience with part of it. Other parts you got caught up to speed, and/or have other teammates that you're working with that help catch you up to speed. For folks that aren't familiar, could you just help us understand what exactly is TDD?
Okay, so when I joined, this is how Ford Labs people explain me the ergonomics of TDD. TDD is nothing but, you can think about a person. One person is driving, one person is navigating. That's how I looked at it when I joined. So essentially, if it's you and me, there are times when we also pair, like cross pair with our PMs, not POs, but PMs, like product managers, because they want to understand what's happening. And similarly, vice versa. Even we want to understand what our PM does. So that's when we try to cross pair. Essentially, what happens over there is, like, I'm a person, if you and I are, pairing together, I would be the one who would be navigating you because I have more idea about what needs to be done, and you can be the one driving. So you are the one who's sharing your screen, doing everything on the screen, and I'm the one who's telling you. So with that, you don't have to follow completely what I'm doing, because if I'm driving and I'm navigating, I'm doing everything. So that's what we try to do. A person who has more knowledge, that person tries to navigate and the other person tries to drive. So that's how it works together great. And that's how you evolve as a team. So that is basically what TDD is. I'm sorry, that is what pair programming is. And TDD is when you try to, I would say, the actual meaning of TDD is when you start writing the test cases first before you actually write the production code. With that being said, basically what I'm trying to say is, any particular application should not be written in terms of production code before you have really good injections in terms of test cases. So with that, we are trying to cut off the level of unit testing, integration testing, at the person level, and because we're trying to automate that inside our application. So that's the whole point. It might take a lot of time. I remember when I started doing TDD in the real sense, I took much more time because you have to revamp the production code again just to match your test cases. But that's the right thing to do. You should never write your code first, like the production code, and do TDD, like doing the testing. You always start the other way around. That's the whole point of TDD. So it's reverse coding.
Super
I
interesting.
think I
Thank you for
give you both
no,
of them.
that's
Pair
this is
programming.
like this is a speed overview. So for folks that are just joining, so Kruti is a member of our Altimetrik team. I'm here representing Altimetrik and a project called the Collider, which is our community-facing branch of our company. Kruti works for Altimetrik full-time at Ford Motor Company, where she is a full-stack Java engineer. So what we're discussing today is her experience working at Ford as a full-stack engineer, and what exactly that looks like. So yeah, there's all sorts of good stuff here. So before we carry on, there was a great question that popped up here from Dev, which is, does Altimetrik work with clients across industries or just automotive and Ford? I can answer that at a high level, but we have Abhi Vadakudi on the line who can answer that much better than me. So Abhi, you want to just chime in real quick on that one? If you can hear me.
Hey, can you guys hear me okay?
Yep, perfect.
My Zoom client froze, but yes.
Yep, you got muted, Abhi, sorry. Somehow. Try that one more time.
There we go. Sorry about that, guys. So yeah, sorry, to answer your question, we're globally based and we do work in a variety of industries. Automotive and corollary manufacturing is a big one, but we do quite a bit of work in payments and fintech for traditional banking. One of our most interesting clients is actually Ancestry.com, and we do all sorts of work, whether it's working on some of their application development or on how they handle some of their data as well. So, Kruti has given a very in-depth view of some of the work that she does, but we're always pivoting to new needs and new technologies. So, if you have any questions about any other industry, practice or specifics, drop a question in the chat. I'm happy to follow up as well.
And also, we mentioned at the beginning of the call, for anyone that missed it, so this is intended to be a series. So this is actually the first session we're doing here, interviewing Kruti, but the intention is to be interviewing different members of our team that are working in different industries, in different roles. Definitely be sure to check out the Altimetrik Collider resources, because we're going to be doing more of these sessions very soon. But until then, back to Kruti. So Kruti, I was hoping, so we've been kind of talking very high level about the different technologies and kind of what that all looks like. Getting a bit more specific, like what do you do on a daily basis? What's the first thing that you do when you sit down at work and kick off your day? Like, what does a day in the life of Kruti look like?
Sure. I think first thing with working from home, I start with a cup of coffee. Otherwise, it's hard to wake up. So coffee first, and then I try to log in at 8 a.m. And then go through just emails. Mostly we talk more on Slack. So just check out Slack if there are any open PRs like pull requests, PR reviews. Go through them, leave comments. If there are any pending tasks from yesterday or last week, go into that. And then the first important thing that we do as a team is we try to have a daily stand-up call. That's where we try to share our updates with the entire team. That's the first thing that we do together as a team. It's very important, it's very vital to be there and be present and give your progress and your updates in terms of what kind of work you are doing with your pair. If you're soloing or working together, you just give your update. The other thing that we try to do is in the morning, for example, if there is any showstopper, if there are any impediments, we try to call it out, so that in the morning it's been it's there in the team, and somebody who's right, who can help you out, will definitely be there to solve that issue. The other thing that we try to do is any shout outs, or if someone helped you during the week from the other team, we try to bring that out. So that's like the very first call in the morning. If it's a Monday, we usually, after the stand up call, we have a pairing session between the devs where we try to rotate uh, with every team members. I don't think for the past 6-7 months or 8 months that we are working from home, I must have not paired with anyone in the team. Like, we are a team of 11 engineers, software engineers, and I try to pair with every different person every week, and we all rotate. So I think that's the start of my day, I would say, and then it just goes on.
Very cool. And then I just had a question that just came to me. So you mentioned the daily stand-up, and I think you might have alluded to Agile, or I don't know if you said the actual word, but so within an Agile framework, so pardon my ignorance, but with extreme programming, what I understand is are you working in sprints like a traditional Agile model, or isn't it like something like you're delivering code like as it's being written or something like that? Can you explain how the extreme programming works with the Agile?
Sure. I can do that. With my team, we try to follow a sprint. It's not really a sprint, but we have a 1-week cycle, because we try to have an IPM every Monday, and whatever task you do, they are supposed to get over by the end of the week. So that is actually the gist of it. So with Agile, there's a lot of different things. First thing is you need to have IPMs, like iteration planning meeting, where you forecast the kind of work you're supposed to do in the week. There is story pointing against velocity versus capacity. So basically, velocity is nothing but how many hours can you actually, give, units of hours, and capacity is how many hours you're available. For example, next week is Veterans Day. So I might not be available for full 40 hours. I'll be there for 32 hours. So based on that, we try to give an estimate. Based on my experience, because I've always worked with Agile and Scrum methodology, in my previous company, we used to follow a 10-day sprint cycle. Here it's 5 days. So that drives your IPMs. The other thing is, I know over there for us, it used to be in terms of complexity. The kind of basically, whenever you create every user story or a task, you define how many hours you're going to take to complete it. So it could be in terms of complexity, in terms of time, or it could be in terms of how complex this task is. Like, we try to do a t-shirt sizing for every task, like is it small, medium, or large, and then we try to follow like a Fibonacci, like, is it 1, 3, or 5, something like that. So here we're doing more in terms of complexity. It could be also in terms of time, but that's the gist of it. And we try to follow Rally. I think that's a standard tool that organizations use. It's great. It's perfect in terms of forecasting the kind of work we need to do. If there are something, there are any showstoppers, we can directly block it out, call it out to our POs and PMs that, this is where we are stuck. Uh, I think that's it. Okay, yeah. Last importantly, as a part of Agile, it's very important that we do a retrospective, like a retro meeting. Retro meetings are nothing but like good, bad, and what went well and what could be improved. So, and if something is not right, should we have action items? Then, every week we try to follow up on those action items and see, okay, should we revisit them? Why is it not done? What's the update? So that is our Fridays. So every Friday we try to have a retro meetings with the entire team and discuss how the team health is and everything.
And when you say the entire team, and you mentioned PO, PM, some different terms there.
Yeah.
Could you break into just a bit more detail? What does the structure, how many people are on your team, and what does the structure of that team, if that makes sense to explain it that way? Yeah.
Question. It's interesting. So we are 10 software engineers, I think. Yeah, we're 10. There's one manager who's a great manager. I love my manager. And then we have 2 product owners. We have 1 PM. Recently, he's having a lot of work, so we have like 2 PMs. My manager keeps telling me on every one-on-one that I want to break down the team into like 2 teams. Basically, every team should not be bigger than a pizza-sized team. So basically, not more than 6 software engineers in one team. Right now, we are 10 team members. We have like around, I think, 6 applications, and everyone's like spread across. And what happens is, like, every new engineer that is joining our team is not getting that much leverage or exposure to the products as compared to the ones who were previously there. So basically, it makes sense, dividing the team into 2 parts. So that means you'll have more leverage over what's happening and more coverage in terms of understanding end to end. But yeah, that's my whole team. We are 10 engineers. We have 1 manager. We have 2 PMs, and we have 2 POs. We try to have more interactions with our PMs. PMs are nothing but product managers, and POs are product owners who actually own, the entire product, and they are the one who directly speak to the client and the stakeholders and all that. So they try to join our meetings as much as possible, but we try to have an interaction more with our managers and PM, and they are the one who speak to the POs directly, because they're really busy in the meetings and all that. So that's how it goes.
Very that makes sense. Thank you. Reminder for everyone tuning in, please feel free to drop questions in the chat and we'll work that in. So Kruti, I'm wondering, given the structure that you just described, if you're going through your day-to-day and you run into a specific obstacle, what does the process look like? So you're pair programming, so you're with somebody else who hopefully would be able to step in and help, I would assume. And then is there like a process that you elevate a concern to a higher level? Like,
right.
What happens if you hit an obstacle?
When you say obstacle, like a defect or a bug that...
Yeah, I was thinking, so maybe a defect or a bug, or you run into something that like you don't know how to do.
Right.
If you run into a challenge that's outside of the skill set of you and your partner, I guess first you'd be trying to figure it out. And then if you like really aren't sure, or you like it's prohibitively challenging, or it would require some sort of system change or something,
right,
I guess what does like the elevation process look like?
Sure. Yeah, I can definitely speak to that. So I think first thing is you need, if you're pairing, it's good if you have a pair. If not, do the right background research and analysis to make sure what the problem is and what's the root cause that's causing it. If it's a technical issue, you can reach out to your team members, or basically your team anchor, to, if it's a high level production defect, definitely you need to make sure the entire team is there in it. But if it's a small defect and if you're stuck, it makes sense to reach out to any team members if the pair cannot solve it. Now this is if it's not technical side. But if it is something related to the process, like you mentioned, where you need more understanding about how the business works, I think it makes sense. I know there were many scenarios where we are given a task, not even a defect, but then we don't have clarity on where to go. So basically, rather than getting drifted in a wrong direction, it makes sense to talk to your PM just to understand what the expectations are. In terms of, because you said elevation, I think this will only happen when there's a production defect. I remember a month ago we had a defect where we had to do 30,000 win enrollments for a customer, which was Avis, and then we realized that there was a scheduling job that was not running in production, and that means like Saturday, whenever they try to do the functionality, I won't go into the details, it's gonna fail, right? So the good thing is we caught it, and then when that happened, I think the first thing that we do, I didn't catch it, my team member did, so he notified the channel. And when you notify the channel, you actually start a WebEx call, and it makes sense for every engineers, even though you are not a part of it, to be there and make sure what's going on. And then we split into like 3-4 teams to understand what was going on, and a PM who was constantly there to just make sure, if he has to elevate something, like, if there are any approvals that are needed, he needs to be there. So it's whenever there's an issue like that, like a production issue, it makes sense to have the senior engineers, the whole team if possible, and also the PM if necessary. And the other thing that I realized after that particular thing is, like, it's very important to have a post-mortem call. This happened Friday evening, so we didn't discuss more about it, but Monday first thing in the morning after our IPM, we tried to have a post-mortem call. It's exactly how it sounds like, where the entire team member, our manager, everyone is there, and you discuss what exactly went wrong and what we should have done to fix it. So that is something that we failed as a team, or that is something that we were not doing it. So, and then, there are outcomes out of it, and then we realize that, our applications are good in terms of TDD and quality, in terms of unit testing, integration testing, but we do not have right end-to-end test, which is definitely missing, not just in this application, which kind of got caught, but it's missing in all our applications. So then we spin up a new feature just to provide an end-to-end test. So when I say end-to-end test, is nothing like whatever is happening in a production, we try to mimic the same thing in lower level. So things like that only happen whenever you try to have a post-mortem call. So I think that was a takeaway and a good learning for all of our team members and our entire team.
That's great. Thank you. That's really helpful.
Yeah.
Great. So taking just a slightly different direction, could you share like a specific, cool project that you worked on recently, or could you like share an example of a finished product that you've worked on? Yeah.
Yeah, there's a bunch of interesting one, but because I just mentioned Avis and Enterprise, I can talk about that product. So think about it as it's called as Ford Pass Block and Unlock and Master Reset. So you are the Ford customer, whether you are renting a car from Avis Enterprise, or if you have your own fleet business, you should be able to control your car anywhere in the world geographically. So that is what we are providing it. So there's an application called as Ford Pass, which we are part of. And with that, we are providing our customers with a microservice with which they can remotely not only lock and unlock the car, but they can also start and stop the car. So it's a combined application that does all four. On top of that, we also provided like elevated privileges to the fleet, I would say fleet managers. For example, if today you are owning a fleet business and a customer just returned the car, you want to make sure that person does not have access to the vehicle. You should not be able to still, lock and unlock the car. So that's when something else comes on the top, which is called as Master Reset or a deall. So what that does is, there's a Ford sync in the car, which has all your profile, your Bluetooth connection and all that extra stuff. So it kind of wipes that entire thing off, and it reboots the entire car with respect to the driver. So this is very impactful, and I just give this example because anyone can relate to this. And if you have a Ford car, you definitely have a Ford Pass app and you are using our features.
Wow, that's really interesting. And I guess like my head goes to like thinking about security and all types of different things, but that's why really smart people like Kruti are thinking about that, and maybe not, I think that might be for another conversation.
No, you can ask me.
Well, I guess, yeah, like, how when you're doing something like that, like obviously it's like so important that you don't want people to be able to hack the cars and turn them off while they're driving or something. So yeah. How does that like factor into the equation from your side? Are there people specifically focused on cybersecurity, or is that just part of your job?
I can tell you what we do as a part of this, because recently we are doing a lot of 42 crunching. 42 crunch is basically any sort of endpoints. These microservices are nothing but like endpoints. So we try to make sure that they are as secure as possible. Although we have a very first step, which is Azure ADFS, we want to make sure the person who is hitting us has a right token, client ID, password. Is nothing like a set of credentials. Once that goes through, that's when only they can hit our endpoints. Otherwise, they will be locked out. So that is something that we do in our code. But 42 crunch is something, it's nothing like you can think about it as a remediation tool in terms of security and threat modeling. Recently, we are working on it. We are trying to send a bunch of malicious requests to our endpoints, and you want to make sure that our application is able to handle it. If not, it's failing to it. So these are different things that we are trying to do at our end at the microservice level. Like I said, we are a team which is like API driven. We sit inside ForwardPass app. So whatever comes to us, this is how we are securing them. And the other request, definitely ForwardPass definitely has, it's a huge team. They have lots of security measures at their end to tackle such issues.
And I know that, and I apologize if you just answered this, but I'm just trying to wrap my head around it. I know like some companies, I have friends that work in cybersecurity. Some companies have like a red team and a blue team, a team that's trying to break into the software and a team that's trying to protect against it. Does Ford approach it like that, or it sounds like it's like it is kind of baked into your role to be building security into the product itself?
Well, yeah, for sure. I mean, any product that you build, you need to make sure it's secured. It's just that a couple of things are there that you can do at your end, which we can do. For example, if it's a front-end application, we do a lot of things. I know for one of our applications, which is in-cap coaching, we do have a driver login. And basically only when that goes through, you can actually hit our endpoints. But when applications like that, when you can directly communicate to us through Postman or any sort of REST client, how do you secure them? That's when we try to use like OAuth authentication 2.0 and different types of better authentication token to protect the microservice. So I think it kind of depends on what kind of application you're building. If it's backend, there's a different strategy that you use. For front end, you go through any sort of login authentication and authorization process and make sure it goes well.
Gotcha. And then I should have mentioned this before, but for folks that are tuning in, if you wouldn't mind dropping in the chat kind of what, are you a software engineer yourself, or kind of something about your background, just so that we can make sure that I'm catering and speaking to kind of where folks are coming at it from. That would be helpful as well.
Yeah, I'm throwing jargons otherwise.
Yeah, well, I'm trying to balance.
Yeah, for sure.
Trying to balance it, but either way, so that's fantastic. So thank you for sharing that insight just about kind of what the role looks like. I think we could kind of do that all day, but I want to make sure that we can break into a few other areas, because it's just with time, looking at the time. So you had kind of alluded to your previous work experience. You came to Altimetrik with 5 years or so of experience, which I think is pretty common. How does your experience working at Altimetrik compare to your previous work experience in terms of the environment and what you've described?
So Altimetrik, the best thing is, like, when I joined, I was in a team where I was more working on front-end technologies. I reached out to Vandan and all, Vandan and Lakshmi, so they gave me a chance to switch my team. So that is one great thing. I know if there are the best part about Altimetrik is whatever happens, they are always there for you. They'll make sure you're there in the right direction. In terms of shadowing and mentoring. The other cool thing about Altimetrik that I really love is it keeps you bonded as a family. I don't think that I have ever missed any one-on-ones with my Ford supervisor. Ford Altimetrik supervisor, I try to talk to him like every 2 weeks. Then we have our HR call is Jess. We try to speak to her every month on a video call, just to make sure that we are working from home and we're doing good. When everything was fine, we used to have town halls and we would go out in person. But right now, even though there's pandemic, we are working from home in interesting times. Still, Autometric is making sure that, we are all glued together. There are so many events that happens every monthly. I keep getting invites for paint and all that. So these kind of things are something that, Autometric makes sure that, it's okay if you're not working with Autometric directly right now. We are working with 4 clients, but still they make sure that, we are kind of glued together. And they also give you a chance, if possible, to contribute towards any Autometric in-house projects. I know Bandhan had reached me out if there is something that I can do, and if it's for my own personal benefit too, if I can do something for Autometric, and I can also learn out of it. So that is one cool thing that Autometric does. They just don't onboard you and leave you. No, they're constantly there for you. They grip you throughout the process. And I think we have an excellent team in terms of HR. There's Abhi, Jacob, Ryan, Bob, Lakshmi, Vandan. Everyone's there in every different aspect whenever you need them. And I think we have an excellent immigration team. I think we didn't touch that part but I come from a background where I don't have a green card, I would say. So in terms of sponsorship, I think Autometric has done a fantastic job. We have a great team of lawyers who are there for you whenever you need them. They try to do premium processing no matter what. So it's kind of a relief. Otherwise, you are there in the system on USCIS for like months. So just in case if somebody is looking for a sponsorship, I think Altimetrik has been really good. It has been a sigh of relief for me personally.
That's great to hear. Thank you for sharing that. And then one piece of that I want to elaborate on. So in terms of kind of what career advancement looks like, or kind of what your path to kind of continue growing, how would you kind of speak to that?
Career advancement in terms of
you mentioned like being able to shift between projects, for example.
Yeah.
We've talked about opportunities for upskilling and different things. I guess I'm curious kind of what the growth path might look like that you kind of see in front of you. Hopefully, should you choose to continue working at Altimetrik.
Yeah, for sure. Like I always keep talking to Vandan that I'm doing pretty well in my team. How about next year? Can I become a team anchor or something like that? If not here with Altimetrik, so that I can, because eventually every 5 years you want to see yourself grow, probably as a tech manager, as an app manager, or TPM or something like that. So those kind of things are there with Altimetrik. If I can excuse and say that I know I reached out to Abhi like last year. For example, I wanted to move to the West Coast, and I just asked him like if it's possible, like if you have family there, they definitely consider that and give you a chance. Like if you want to move around, I know we have lots of clients spread across through West Coast, Midwest, on the East Coast. There's everywhere. So in case if you need, if you're not happy in your current role, or if you have any issues, I know Altimetrik is great in terms of even giving you a location opportunity, if that's the case.
That's great. And then we have a question from the audience here, which I know we've kind of been jumping around everybody, so we appreciate your patience there. So the question here is how did you get into the company to begin with? How did you get involved with Altimetrik and the client Ford? And so I can kind of recap what you had shared about the Ford piece, but how did you kind of hear about Altimetrik initially? How did you get connected, and how did that initial process?
Yeah, so I applied on LinkedIn and I got a call from Chandra, who's like the manager there, the business manager. So that's how it worked out for me. And maybe right now, I know a lot of people are getting into Altimetrik with the referrals, and the path is pretty straightforward. If you have a right profile and the right experience, Altimetrik will definitely give you a chance, if that answers the question. So I applied through LinkedIn. And that's how I thought about it. Because I used to be in North Carolina. I didn't hear about Altimetrik. I just went through it. I liked the job description and all that. And Ford was interesting. They didn't mention Ford on the job description. So I did apply.
Yeah. And then with regards to the Ford aspect of that question, it really depends contextually. But effectively, depending on the role that you're applying for, typically it is associated with a specific role that we're looking to fill on a client team. So generally speaking, you'd be applying for a specific role. And or given your location, and you'd be working on a specific team. As Kruti mentioned, there is uniquely, this opportunity to kind of shift between teams and find a fit, and or work, shift between clients potentially as well. So it can kind of look like a number of different things depending on the circumstance. So I hope that's not too vague, but that really is kind of how it works over here. So Gladys is curious. This is a great question. I want to kind of expand on this, but the question is, what's the best way to gain experience? And I'm going to add to that, Kruti, kind of as a professional software engineer, kind of how do you approach kind of continuing to build your skill set, and kind of how did you build your skill set to get to where you are today?
Sure. I would say, like I mentioned, power-ups have helped me a lot on Fridays. That's when I try to start up on something that I have no knowledge about. Ford gives every engineers a chance to do that. Other than that, I know we have lots of team mobbing sessions. Team mobbing sessions are nothing but every team member joins on every Tuesday in our team, and then we try to mob on a particular task. So that is when, for example, there are any new team members who do not have experience on any particular product or technology, they are exposed to that. So we do a lot of team mobbing. That's when we try to, navigate and, pair program, I would say, together. The other way that you can possibly increase your skill set is by, networking, talking to more people. I did mention this in one of our previous sessions. I try to attend a lot of webinars online, with Azure, which is Microsoft, with Amazon. That kind of keeps you up to date in terms of technology, and those are different things that you can actually bring to your own table and contribute to the team. That's what I do. There is also a lot of networking things that I try to be a part of. I did mention GHC last time. I would talk about it again. So I try to be a part of a team called as GHC. GHC is Grace Hopper Celebrations, where you can, it's basically a group of organizations for basically women in technology. So you can go there. I know this year it was completely virtual. It's a huge event. Millions of people apply to it, and some people get to it. But then definitely you can attend those seminars and webinars virtually. That kind of helps me a lot in terms of interaction with just not the people in my company, but overall, and in I would say cross collaboration with the people in this entire industry.
And will you say the name? Will you say the name of that one more time?
Yeah, GHC. It's called as Grace Hopper Celebrations. And there are many such events that I try to be a part of, and just increase my tech stack knowledge as far as possible.
Got it. And then I want to just add to what Kruti just said, Gladys. And so I think depending on your kind of level of experience, there's a lot of different free or reasonably priced interactive coding tools like Udemy and Code Academy and a number of others that you can search for if you just like Google, coding training. Code Academy offers all sorts of really free, awesome tools. I know the other services do as well. Coding boot camps, if you're really looking to step it up, wildly ranging in price and different opportunities, but lots of different opportunities to kind of join these crash course training type courses. And then the other one is just like, meetups and things. And I know you mentioned you're tuning in from New York. I don't know exactly what the kind of the local meetup scene looks like around there, but meetup in general and some of these other kind of online networks and tools, what we're doing with the Collider project is specifically looking to be sharing relevant technical knowledge with folks like yourself, so that we can be helping raise up, rising tide raises all ships. So if you check out our page on Meetup, Collider Detroit, and we'll drop the links in here in just a moment. We also have a YouTube channel with a number of different kind of past sessions that we've run on a variety of different topics. But in addition to these A Day in the Life sessions, we also host technology-specific tech talks of different sorts, really helping folks level up their technical knowledge. So those are just some other high-level ideas there. So Kruti, as we kind of near 6:30 here, and I know we got started a few minutes late, but I guess my last question would be, and Dev shared HackerRank as well as a resource. So my last question for you, Kruti. Oh, what was that?
HackerRank and LeetCode, they're similar. So if you want to be an expert in terms of algorithms, I would say LeetCode and HackerRank would be your bread and butter.
LeetCode?
LeetCode. LeetCode
Cool.
and HackerRank. And it's preferred if you buy a subscription. It's just like $130 a year, which is like a drop in the bucket if you look at it in the long term.
That's great advice. Thank you. So my last question, again, encouraging everybody else to chime in if you have anything else before we break. But I'm curious, Kruti, kind of if you were recommending, if you were going to encourage a friend to work at Altimetrik, what might you share with them? What might your pitch sound like?
So when I joined my playground, they told me three important things that Altimetrik tries to follow, the core values. The first one was accelerating digital transformation, moving fast, and providing the right value to the customers and transforming the way it looks like or it's perceived to our customers. And that's what I think I got a chance to do by making sure that I'm partnered with the right team and the right organization, and making sure that I'm providing the right value and making an impact on our customers, learning every new thing every day, so that I can take away in my future experience. So that has been fantastic. I really love working with Altimetrik. There's also immigration thing, like I mentioned earlier. I would like to cover that again. Immigration wise, I think Altimetrik would take care of you no matter what, providing you have the right background. And the other thing is, I think in terms of if you are doing really well, Altimetrik will make sure that they are providing you career advancement. In terms of pandemic and all that, I've never felt like a problem with the job security and all that. So I think personally, it's great working with Altimetrik. I would definitely refer people and would want to join them as an Altimetrik family with Ford or any other clients. So I think it's great working with Altimetrik overall.
And you're not just saying that because your teammates.
No, I'm not just saying it, for real. I cross my heart and hope to die if I'm lying.
That's fantastic. So
Yeah.
as we wrap up, I'm just kind of curious, Kruti, if there's anything else that we didn't specifically cover that is coming to you that you want to share with the group here today.
I think we covered most of it, unless there are any questions that we can take.
Yeah, and while we're waiting on folks to process and think if there's any other questions, Ryan is dropping some links in the chat here. So just to reiterate, in terms of kind of how we are approaching this, the Collider team, we're hosting, again, affiliated with the Altimetrik team. We are hosting technical programming ranging from what is it like to be a software engineer, like this session, to really specific technology related programming ranging from Java engineering, like what Kruti does, to some of the specifics that she was getting into. We cover topics like that, data engineering, cutting edge tech. The last session we did was about the future of voting and how blockchain technology might factor in. So really covering an exciting range of things. So definitely encourage you to find us on Meetup and YouTube, so that you can check out kind of the other things that we're working on there. I just want to reiterate one more time that this is the first of hopefully many sessions that we're doing with this kind of a day in the life model. Kruti, thank you so much for sharing. This is such unbelievably helpful information for me. I hope that other folks feel that way as well. And yeah, I think I'm not sure exactly who our next session is going to be, but we're going to kind of try to offer a really wide range of different, roles and industries to really give a wide spectrum of this type of deep dive.